Listening 149. Listen and read. The Prince and the Pauper.
The Prince and the Pauper.
Tom Canty was a boy from a very poor family.
Tom Canty was a boy from a very poor family.
His clothes were old and dirty, and he never had enough food.
His clothes were old and dirty, and he never has enough food.
However, Tom believed that he could have a better life one day.
However, Tom believed that he could have a better life one day.
He was clever, and he knew how to read and write.
He was clever, and he knew how to read and write.
He wanted to get a good job and earn enough money to have a house, clothes, and good food.
He wanted to get a good job and earn enough money to have a house, clothes, and good food.
One day, Tom was outside the palace gates when he saw Prince Edward.
One day, Tom was outside the palace gates when he saw Prince Edward.
Tom stood and watched the prince for a while.
Tom stood and watched the prince for a while.
The guards tried to send Tom away.
The girls tried to send Tom away.
But the prince stopped them.
But the prince stopped them.
The two boys were very surprised when they saw each other.
The two boys were very surprised when they saw each other.
They had very different lives.
They had very different lives.
But they looked just the same.
But they looked just the same.
They had the same eyes, the same hair, and the same faces.
They had the same eyes, the same hair, and the same faces.
The only thing that was different was their clothes.
The only thing that was different was their clothes.
Prince Edward invited Tom into the palace, and the two boys talked about their lives.
Prince Edward invited Tom into the palace, and the two boys talked about their lives.
Edward had lots of money, fine clothes, jewels, and plenty of food. But he had to stay in the palace and be quiet and good all the time.
Edward had lots of money, fine clothes, jewels, and plenty of food. But he had to stay in the palace and be quiet and good all the time.
Tom had nothing, but he could play in the street with other boys and meet lots of interesting people.
Tom had nothing, but he could play in the street with other boys and meet lots of interesting people.
I want to be like you, Tom said to Edward.
I want to be like you, Tom said to Edward.
You are rich, and you can have everything you want.
You are rich, and you can have anything you want.
I want to be like you, Edward said to Tom.
I want to be like you, Edward said to Tom.
You are free, and you can do everything you want.
You are free, and you can everything you want.
Well, you look just like me, and we are the same age, said Edward.
Well, you look just like me, and we are the same age, says Edward.
Let's swap clothes.
Let's swap clothes.
You can stay here, and I can live with your family for a while.
You can stay here and I can live with your family for a while.
Tom thought this was a wonderful idea.
Tom thought it was a wonderful idea.
The two boys swapped clothes and looked at each other.
The two boys grabbed clothes and looked at each other.
We are like twins.
We are like twins, Tom laughed.
Tom laughed. Before Edward left the palace, he hid a wax disc in a suit of armour.
Before Edward left the palace, he hid a glass dish in a suit of armour.
Then he left the palace quickly, before the guards found the two boys together.
Then he left the palace quickly, before the guards found the two boys together.
Soon, Edward was with Tom's family. But it was not much fun.
Soon, Edward was with Tom's family, but it was not much fun.
Tom's father was unkind. He was often angry, and he shouted at Edward all the time.
Tom's father was unkind. He was often angry and he shouted at Edward all the time.
Edward wanted to leave. He ran away and met a soldier called Miles Hendon.
Edward wanted to leave. He ran away and met a soldier called Miss Hendon.
He was a kind man, and he looked after Edward.
He was a kind man, and he looked after Edward.
They had lots of adventures together.
They had lots of adventures together.
Edward didn't really like life outside the palace.
Edward didn't really like life outside the palace.
He saw that life was very difficult for poor people.
He saw that life was very difficult for poor people.
He decided to be a good king and help the people of England.
He did to be a good king and help the people of England.
Meanwhile, Tom was pretending to be the prince.
Meanwhile, Tom was pretending to be the prince.
It wasn't easy. He didn't know how to act or what to say to people.
It wasn't easy. He didn't know how to act or what to say to people at first.
At first, people thought the prince was ill because he seemed so different.
At first, people thought the prince was ill because he seemed too different.
But Tom was a clever boy and he learned quickly.
But Tom was a clever boy and he learned quickly.
He had lots of good ideas and he was good at making important decisions.
He has lots of good ideas and he was good at making important decisions.
Soon everyone was sure that the prince was well again.
Soon everyone was sure that the prince was well again.
Sadly, the king died while Edward was away.
Sadly, the king died while Edward was away.
Prince Edward was now the king of England.
Prince Edward was now the king of England.
Tom was very worried. He didn't want to be king.
Tom was very worried. He didn't want to be a king.
Luckily, Edward heard the news and came